Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you live from my backyard in beautiful Los Angeles, California. It is a toasty hot day today here, so I hope you're doing well, being happy, staying healthy, and staying safe. Today in Critter Chat, we're going to talk about an amazing group of animals called gibbons. Now, gibbons to most people look like monkeys. However, they are not a monkey. They are apes. Several differences between monkeys and apes. One, and most obvious, monkeys have tails, apes do not. Apes are also usually a little higher thinking ability. They're a little smarter, according to most people, and their social dynamics usually quite a bit different. Also, a bit the way they move can be different as well. With gibbons, there are, depending on who you ask, either 19 or 20 different species in 4 different genus. So that means that there's kind of some differences even in the group of gibbons. They are all mammals, they are all primates, and they're all in the same family, but then it splits up into 4 different genus. They all come from kind of southern and southeastern Asia, where they live in forest. They live kind of in the following countries: China, India, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Like I mentioned, they're forest dwelling, and they spend most of their time up in the trees, and usually very high up in the trees, rarely coming down to the ground in the wild. They even usually get the water that they need, either from the food that they eat, or sometimes trapped in little plants that grow high up in the trees called bromeliads that catch a lot of plant water kind of in the base of the plant. So they are absolute masters at living up in the trees. And as far as tree-dwelling primates go, they have perfected the mode of transportation called brachiation. Brachiation is a big scientific word that basically means swinging. They're really good at grabbing hold of a branch and then swinging to the next branch, grabbing hold of that, and swinging on and on they go through the forest. Some have been clocked at traveling 35 miles per hour, so they can be very fast, and sometimes they can travel 50 feet between handholds. So if they're going really fast and it's one big tree down to a smaller tree or to a lower branch, they can sometimes make that leap of 50 feet. So they are very, very good at moving far distances if they're going fast. Typically, they'll travel between 1 up to maybe 3 miles a day in their forest setting. They spend, like I said, most of their time up in the trees, and they are very well adapted to do so. Their arms are 1.5 times as long as their legs are. So they have super long arms. The biggest of the gibbons have an arm span, so from tip to tip, from fingertip to fingertip, of almost 5 feet. So they have very long arms, and that helps them to move very well through their forest home. When they're on the ground, or if they're walking along a big branch, they will sometimes hold their arms out to help balance, or sometimes hold their arms up over their head if it's a tight fit. And they kind of look a little goofy when they do that. In zoos, they sometimes do that as they run across the ground. They have their arms up in the air, kind of wagging back and forth as they move, and it's pretty funny. They eat a wide variety of different things, but mostly fruit. Fruit is the biggest thing that they eat, followed by leaves, and then also flowers, sometimes some insects, some birds, and some bird eggs. But the forest is very, very important to them, and they are very important to the forest. As a big fruit eater, they also swallow a lot of seeds, and as they move around throughout the day, they poop a lot, and that poop helps grow new plants of those fruit-dwelling trees and bushes. Gibbons also have a pretty unique social structure. Compared to other apes like gorillas or chimpanzees or orangutans, gibbons are social, but in a very specific way. They usually have monogamous pair bonds, which means a male and a female come together. They usually stay together most of the rest of their life, or if not all their life, and they have a little family, and it's them and their children. And then when the kids get big enough to leave home, the kids move out and they have more baby. Typically, a gibbon family would be about 4 individuals, sometimes 5, sometimes 3, sometimes maybe only the parents if all the kids have moved out. But they kind of keep a very close-knit family group. And with that, they kind of have a home range in their forest that they defend in a very interesting way. They just kind of vocalize and shout about the fact that this is their forest and that all others should stay away. And they pretty much respect each other, with fights between family groups for territory being very rare. When they vocalize, it's actually very, very beautiful. It's very interesting sounds that they make. Most people describe it as a song or singing, with the mom and the dad making a duet. So they both sing different parts, but it's the same song every day. It's super great to hear, and it can be, in some species, very, very loud. Particularly the Simanes, who are the biggest of all gibbons, can be heard for up to 2 miles away and are known to be one of the loudest of all land-based mammals. In their family group, the mom usually is pregnant, or her gestation period is between 6 to 7 months. Once the baby's born, it's tiny, weighing less than a pound. It has strong arms though, and it grips onto her hair, and she kind of holds it a bit as she moves through the trees, carrying it for about a year long, and then dad kind of steps in and helps beyond that. At about 2 years old, the baby is able to eat solid food and move around on its own, and then nobody has to carry it so much. Usually by the time that first baby is 3 or 4, a second baby is born, and the first baby will kind of observe how the parents help the younger baby, and then maybe as that baby gets a little bit older, that older sibling can sometimes help out and practice how to take care of a baby, so that when it's an adult, it will know how to do so as well. They usually stay with their parents till they're about 10 in the wild, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. And then they go off and on their own, and every day they'll just sing a little song to kind of try to find a mate. And then when they find a mate, they will find a home range that they defend and set up that space for their own family. In the wild, they can live into their 30s. In a zoo setting, they can easily live into their 40s or 50s, with one individual making it into his 60s at a zoo in New Zealand. So they can be very long-lived. With their songs that they sing, some species have a special throat pouch underneath their chin that inflates with air and helps to amplify that sound. Specifically, the Simanes do that. I'll find a video that showcases their singing and post that on the Facebook page later today. It's absolutely amazing. When I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, one of the places I lived was an apartment complex that was about a mile away from the zoo. And on days that I didn't work, or if I walked my dogs early in the morning before I went to work, I could usually hear the Simanes singing from a mile away. I could hear them over at the zoo. So they can be very, very loud. Other gibbons can be pretty loud too. Typically in mornings when I was at the zoo, I would usually hear them. Once I was at the zoo, but I couldn't usually hear them from too far away. Gibbons are considered to be small-bodied apes. They're quite a bit smaller than like a chimpanzee or a bonobo, which are the smallest of the great ape species. Gibbons tend to be between, like I said, there's 19 or 20 species, depending on who you ask. And they tend to be between 17 and up to 35 inches tall. So about 1.5 feet tall up to about 3 feet tall. And they weigh anywhere from about 12 pounds on that smaller size species, up to about 26 or 27 pounds for the Siamines, for the biggest ones. What else? It is disputed a little bit how many species are out there. There was a newer species recognized a couple years ago. Some people still say that it might just be a subspecies level. We'll go with the number of 20 species for now. The scientist who helped do the genetic testing to figure out that was a new species, he got the rights to name that, and he named them the Skywalker Hulak Gibbon, because he's a huge fan of Star Wars. So it's kind of a fun thing. They live in India, China, and Myanmar, and Bangladesh, I believe. All gibbon species are threatened with some level of extinction. With the 20 species of gibbons, 5 are listed as critically endangered. That means they could be gone in 5 years or less unless something changes. 14 of the 20 species are listed as endangered, meaning they could be gone within 10 to 15 years if things are not improved. And 1 species is listed as vulnerable. That means that species probably has 25 or 30 years before it gets into worse shape. With that, they all kind of face very similar threats. In that part of Asia, there's a ton of humans that live in there. Both China and India have human populations of over 1 billion people, and many of those other countries also have many millions of people. In addition to that area of Asia is important land where a lot of agricultural things are grown, and habitat loss, losing the forest, is the major threat for the gibbons. They don't like places where the trees get cut down for lumber uses or to harvest to turn into paper. They also don't like agricultural land so much, places where things like coffee or palm oil are being grown, sugarcane a little bit as well. All of those can be problems. And then they are also sometimes captured for use in the pet trade in Asia. They certainly would be a very difficult pet to take care of. I highly recommend you never own a primate of any kind as a pet, as they can have very complex social needs that would be difficult for humans to take care of. They usually need many members of their own species to truly be happy. And in some areas, they are hunted and eaten by people or used in traditional medicines, popular in many Asian cultures. Most of those have been proven to have no medicinal value, but they are still sometimes killed for that reason. Our special shout out today is to an organization called the Gibbon Conversation Center. They are here in Southern California, about 35 miles from where I live. I have never been there, but it is on my plan of places to go once they can open up and accommodate people a little more safe after coronavirus has subsided a bit. In my experience with gibbons during my time at the zoos I've worked at, they had different species of gibbons. At the Phoenix Zoo, like I mentioned, I could hear the Siamines every morning, or most mornings before I would get to work, or as I would get to work, I would hear them. They also had some buff-cheeked gibbons that I would hear if I was there at the zoo early in the morning. During my time at the Phoenix Zoo, I never worked directly with either of those animals, but I would hear them quite a bit. During my training time at the Los Angeles Zoo, I did work a little bit with both those species, buff-cheeked gibbons and Siamines. As I was training to be a zookeeper, they were super smart and very interested in working with their keepers to do training to make sure that they could give medication or medical exams to them on a regular basis. During that time, the Siamines also had a baby, which was super cool to be able to see. As I was not a regular keeper of them, they were a little hesitant to come near when I was around, so I didn't get to work with them up close, super close, and we always kept a barrier between us and them, as they could be potentially dangerous to people. I would also like to point out at the San Diego Zoo, they have Siamines that live in the same exhibit with their orangutans, and over the years they've had some really cool mixed species interactions that have occurred. And currently they have a baby Simane who's about 2 years old, who is really good friends with a baby orangutan who I believe is like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old, and they play together often. So I'll see if I can find a video and share that with you. They post great videos often. So they also have a webcam called the Ape Cam at the San Diego Zoo, where you can sometimes catch a glimpse of the Simanes or the orangutans, or sometimes both, as they do share a habitat. They also come from the same island. Both those species live on the island of Sumatra, so they would on occasion interact a bit in the wild, although it's definitely not as common as they would interact in the zoo setting. As always, I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared with you today on our Critter Chat. I'll be posting more information later today on the Facebook page, so check that out, as well as sharing some videos from some of those zoos, especially of some of the vocalizations of the different species of gibbons. It's some of my favorite sounds that are heard or made by the animal kingdom, so it's really cool to be able to hear those. I'll share those in a video format later on today. As always, feel free to like, share, follow, and subscribe to any of my content across the platforms of Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or you can check out my Critter Chats and some photos on my website at jeremythezoonerd.com. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, have fun, and be safe. See you later. Bye.